And we're live.
Yeah, a couple minutes early again.
I told you, I got to bank those minutes. I'll never forget the time I got lectured.
Well, I don't.
I lectured over that 2.5 minminutes we were late. I've never been late. Matter of fact, if I added up all the bank minutes, we've probably done 2 extra shows.
Maybe. I mean, that's possibly true. Yeah.
Good to see you, Bal.
Good to see you.
I know what I want to talk about here, but getting to the gist of what I would like to see us talk about, I may stumble a bit. Essentially, I want to talk about intuition, which we've touched on before, but the idea of knowing when an opportunity that's in front of us, whether it's business or personal, is something we should pursue. Whether it's, do we have enough courage or lack of courage, or is it a wise decision or not? What's the process like, or what is the process, or what the process should be like to enable us to give us the best opportunity to first disseminate the idea, opportunity, and then help decide to take action on solid opportunities? Because I think that's a problem. It's a big problem, especially with younger folks, younger entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to answer it. One, I think everybody's process is different. How I analyze a situation or something I'm going into is probably a lot different than most. Just because it's experience, right? Like, I have experience, so the older I've gotten, the quicker I can analyze things. So I always look at the what if scenarios. What are the what ifs, and am I okay with all of them? And then I pick which is the best one for me. So like, give me an example of a situation. I think it's maybe easier for me to talk through it that way.
You have a large corporate customer who just opened a facility in Philadelphia. And you have a couple other clients in Philadelphia too, which has required a lot of travel for you. But now looking at this book of business, you need to determine whether it's worth it staffing an office in Philadelphia.
It's cost benefit analysis for me right there. I mean, that would be my process. Okay, how often? What do those clients require from face-to-face time? Like, do they need someone there constantly? What does that equal? Like, how much time? What does it cost me to staff a person there? Like, it's pure. That's a math equation for me. So that,
like a formula.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, from a business. Most business decisions, I will let my intuition guide me and the data support it. So to me, it's like, okay, if I'm building a book of business in Philadelphia, my intuition is probably telling me it might make sense to have somebody present there permanently. And if my intuition is telling me that, I have to find the data to support it. And if I don't have the data to support it, then I'm like, okay, my intuition's off. But I could tell you in my career, that's maybe happened less than a handful of times where my intuition's been off.
So would you agree too that decision making is kind of like a muscle? The longer you're in business and the more success you build wins. I don't know if the decision making process gets easier, but I think you tend to make better decisions.
You make better and faster decisions because the more opportunities I've had to make decisions, right? That means the more situations I've seen, the more fact patterns I've been aware of. So I can usually we'll take the past 6 months, right, in business. There probably hasn't been anything in the past 6 months in any business situation for myself or a client that I've dealt with that has surprised me. I've seen so much, right? So even if a client comes to me with a situation, probably 80% of it I've dealt with before. There's maybe this new 20% nuance that I have to figure out. But if I have the 80%, the 20% is easy for me. Because now, 10 years ago, different story. It's probably flipped 20-80. 20% I probably know about, 80% I got to figure out. So the more you engage in the process,
work through the muck.
It comes back to what we always say, like, you've got to be in the game on the field. Like, the more you engage in life, the more you engage in business, your personal life, the more information you receive and obtain, and the quicker I believe you can make decisions.
Yeah. So let's wind it all the way back. Let's just say a young man or a young lady, let's say they've been working at a car dealership, and they've been washing cars and detailing cars, and they kind of like it. And they get the idea that, hey, I want to create a mobile detailing company. I like this kind of work. I like the joy that it brings people delivering them a fresh car, because I think that's a thing.
Sure.
And they feel compelled to do something like that. But the fear is that they just don't know what they don't know.
Okay.
And they can recognize that, you know. How does one judge the level of desire versus the unknown? And at what point does the level of desire overwhelm the unknown and kind of nudge them into action?
I mean, that's the only way it'll work. I mean, you have to be nudged into action, because the unknown is going to overwhelm you. You're not going to do it, right? If you're too worried about the unknown, because you can't know it all, you can't see it all, right? If you're take for instance that example, I'm detailing cars at a dealership, and I want to start a mobile detailing business, right? There's a lot of unknowns. First question I'm asking myself, or the first question I'm asking that person is, can you sell? Because if you can't do that, you're dead in the water, right? Because you
got to find customers,
right? You know how to detail, right? But can you find the customer? So sales is, any entrepreneur, if you cannot sell, you're not going to be successful. So that's the first skill you have to learn. So you've got to be really honest with yourself. Can I talk to people? Can I connect with people? Because that's really what every business is about when you think about it, right? Every business is about connecting with people. So I think people, because I've watched people get into analysis paralysis. They have all the systems, like, I can do this, I can do this. It's like, okay, great. Where are the customers coming from?
Right.
Can you connect with people?
Yes.
Can you talk to people? And if you can't do that, I could be the best lawyer in the world. I could be the smartest lawyer in the world. But if I can't talk to people, relate to people, or if people don't like and trust me, I'm not going to make shit.
Or if they can't hear your message.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you have to get out there. Like, that's the thing too, that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand, the sheer effort and intensity it takes to build a business.
So we probably we confuse process competency with sales.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Just because, again, I'll use my profession. Just because you're a great lawyer doesn't mean you can run a law firm or start a law firm. There are fantastically smart subject matter expert lawyers in firms that could never start a firm themselves, because it's a different skill set, right? Like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I sell legal services. I'm a lawyer by trade, right? I have degrees, I have licenses, I can practice law. But truly, at the heart of what I am, I'm an entrepreneur, and what I sell is legal services. So a lot of lawyers they're lawyers. They're very good lawyers. They don't hang know how the shingle sell.
And they expect business.
Yeah, there's so many lawyers out there now, like so many. And if you can't sell or connect with people, it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer. They're not going to come find you.
And the earlier someone learns that, the better off their journey can be if they decide to take the nudge.
100%. Like, if I could go back to early in my career, and even if I wasn't planning on starting a firm, I would have networked, 50% more than I did. I would be light years ahead of where I am right now. Like, truly, I didn't understand the importance of it back then.
Of the sales component.
Of the sales, I was just trying to be a really good lawyer. Like, I was practicing law at a firm. Then I went in-house. I was just trying to be the smartest guy in the room and figure out the problems and solve the problems for people. I connected with people naturally. That's one of my natural skill sets, but it wasn't a focus of mine. I wasn't trying to build that muscle.
That's probably where corporates kind of has it reversed, right?
Yeah.
If you are the smartest one in the room and very skilled at the process, you could probably do rather well there.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the structure that those skill sets would yearn for. The sales part of it, the entrepreneurial part of it, is set for entrepreneurship.
That's why I hated corporate America. I love talking to people and connecting with people, and it didn't matter what I could do with that. Like, I just had to be the smartest guy. I had to be the lawyer. I had to figure out the problems, solve the issues, and I could do that. But I wanted to expand and talk to people and develop business, and that's why I left. I hated corporate America.
How many potential business owners do you talk to where the sales component's missing, or that they are starting to act on what apparently, as they unwind it for you, appears to be a whim?
Oh, that's a good question. And honestly, I would say not a ton. We've been very fortunate. with the clients we have and the people that call. We have a really good, I think, marketing team that filters out a lot of the leads. So the leads we get are pretty qualified, right? You know, if I talk to 20, you know, potential clients, there's maybe less than 5 that I'm like, okay, you're not ready. Like you're acting on a whim, or you don't understand sales. Most of them that we're talking to are pretty, you know, are pretty savvy, I would say. But again, you can spot it very quickly. Like if someone that's acting on a whim, like I'll ask 3 questions, and you know, who's your customer avatar? They don't have any idea what that means. I'm like, okay, you're acting on a whim, right? If you ask that question and say, okay, how many have you sold? You know, is this a problem that needs solved?
Right.
That's the big one that I think that
a
lot of people surround that. And I've witnessed this with really smart people, like really smart people. They're around other really smart people. They're like, that's a great idea. It's like, okay, let me be the practical guy. What problem does it solve? It may be the best idea in the world. It might be so complex and so groundbreaking, but if no one's looking for it,
sure,
who gives a shit?
Yeah, and that's and I don't know if it's our society. I don't know if it's our internet or social media, but something does sell the average people, the average folk, the idea of ease of entry to entrepreneurship.
It's the hardest thing you'll do. Ease of entry. Anybody can enter entrepreneurship, right? If you have a phone, if you literally have a phone and social media, you can make money.
100%.
If you,
in theory,
if you put a little work in, I mean, true.
Oh yeah.
If you want to make,
agreed,
you know, a couple $1,000 a month passively, and if you put in 100 hours of research and work, and you have a phone, internet, and social media, you could probably do it. Okay. Most people don't want to put in the work. So the barriers of entry are way lower than they were 20 years ago, right? Think about starting a business 20 years ago. Like,
yes.
Now it's like I could do it I don't have to be anywhere.
Right.
Don't need office space.
AI to write stuff for you. Yeah.
Literally, you can have everything done for you.
Right.
The problem is it's the barriers of entry are low. The barriers of progress are high.
Right.
Like that's how I look at it now. Because now it's like everybody's there. Everybody's now in the arena. So the people that are going to be really good,
certainly,
the barriers are a lot higher to get there.
Certainly,
to pull yourself aside and set yourself apart.
I get that, and you know, we talked about it before. Internet started. There was that 7-8 year window from the time it started to the time that it really started to proliferate in society.
Yeah,
that was a window. I happened to be riding that window, and then when it just became more mainstream in the musical instrument business, I felt the competition. I had to pivot and adjust and continue to be creative. But had I didn't have the desire to do that, I would have died.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People have to look at you. You have to constantly evolve as a business owner because technology is increasing so rapidly.
Certainly,
like my industry, the legal industry, is changing every month. I feel like something new is happening, so you got to stay on top of that. And I think people have to understand that you may be successful now, that does not guarantee success tomorrow.
Which is a different philosophy from decades ago.
Oh yeah,
in theory, you might have always been right there, but the pace of society moves so slow that there was some hard and true rules within certain industries from 30, 40, 50 years ago that you could do exactly that.
Yeah.
If you did these fundamentals this certain way, nothing's a guarantee, but you can kind of project a decent amount of revenue 5, 7, 10, 15 years out. Because society was not changing that rapidly.
No, and there wasn't access to information. There wasn't access to competition.
And the consumers were not as well informed as they are today.
No, I mean, think about, you know, I'll take, for instance, like working out, right? When I first got into working out, like buying supplements, I can go to GNC. I didn't know about Vitamin Shop or Vitamin World. I had to go to those places. Now I can just type in something on the internet and find 100 retailers that will ship it to me same day. So you've got to be way better than you were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I would go to GNC. That's why I buy protein powder or whatever I was buying. Now I can get it anywhere.
Right.
So there's so much more competition. So now people have to rethink things, and it's
certainly
in any business you're in. I mean, look at real estate, right? I mean, it's constantly changing. You have to rethink things all the time.
Certainly, yeah. The landscape changes.
Yeah,
and you're never really in control of your market. People think that they're, I've got this figured out. You have it figured out for this week, maybe. I guarantee starting next week, it's going to slowly or rapidly change. You got to understand and be willing to deal with that.
I always say, if you think you're in control of a market, you're in control of nothing.
Hard to argue that.
I mean, it truly, if you think, because again, markets are so unpredictable
by nature, as they should be.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if you think you have it figured out, you're missing something. There has not been one time in my professional career I'm like, I got this figured out. Most days I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just come in and just kick and scream and push and grind my way through it all and just solve the problems as they come. There's, because I don't ever want to get to a point where I feel like I have it figured out.
Because complacency,
yes, and you're missing something. Like, I believe that when people get to that point, I'm like, I got this figured out. Like, there's a glaring thing you're missing, and it just hasn't smashed you in the face yet.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to drill down though on that decision making process, because I do think that there's a philosophy that, if something is gnawing at you and there's you feel the intuition to act, that's just on blind faith that it'll work out. And then you have the other folks that'll want to overanalyze that feeling into perpetuity of never taking action.
Okay.
And you got to be able to find out the best case for oneself.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it comes down to analyzing your risk tolerance as a person.
Absolutely. I mean, that's step one. Step one is what you just said, understanding your risk tolerance. Most people don't understand it.
No, because they probably haven't actually honestly asked themselves that question.
That's exactly right. Like, I know my risk tolerance very well. I mean, I've done the DISC profile. I've done every other thing. It's all saying the same thing. I will take risks in any way I can.
Yeah, we're very similar that way.
Yeah, like I'm because I believe that I've built the skill sets over time that I haven't felt that I've been in a situation where I couldn't navigate through it.
Correct. So if I'm reading you right, because this is how I've always felt, although it has terrified those in my life, I have always believed that what's the worst that can happen? I will fail, and I have complete confidence that I will find success in some other company or endeavor, or I will figure it out.
Yeah.
That's now again, there's no guarantees with that.
No.
It's just a mindset. And when you have that mindset, for better or worse, at times, you are more inclined to take the leap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You either have a growth mindset or a lack mindset. Like, when I leap from corporate America.
Explain that. Explain what that is.
I think when people have a lack mindset, they're playing defense all the time. They only think there's so much pie to go around, so I've got to protect what I have.
The reactionary too.
Yeah, I'm very risk adverse, right? Because I built this. I don't want to lose it, right? So I'm going to play defense and build my moat and do that. People that are a growth mindset, like, there's so much shit out there that I can go grab. Like, I'm just going to go get it. And if I lose this, I'll just get more. There's plenty more where that is. I'll
pivot and adjust and
find
another stream.
Yeah, like I've always been growth. I've always had that growth mindset. Because when I left corporate, like, I left from a large salary to nothing. I'm like, I'll figure it out. There's plenty out there to get. I just have to find the way to do it. I have to solve the problem. Like, that's how I've always looked at life. Any situation I've been given, good or bad, what is the problem I have to solve? And then start there. Solve the first problem, and then the next one, and the next one.
Yes, and the only way that works is if you exhibit, and not only exhibit, but if you conduct yourself under strict discipline.
I mean, that helps tremendously. Absolutely. I mean, if I didn't have the discipline I have in life, I would not be where I am today. I know that for a fact. Like, discipline is truly the centerpiece of my life, because I know how I can be, right? I'm a risk taker. I can be careless. I can be
probably wild. Crazy things on Amazon.
What did I buy crazy? I mean, I haven't bought anything crazy lately. I bought a new putter for a golf outing, and
it's not crazy.
Golf gloves and some balls.
It won't help, buddy. I'm just letting you know.
I mean, I bought the club this weekend, Gabe, and I went golfing on Sunday to hit them, and I'm like, like the first couple, I'm like, this is great. New clubs matter. I'm like, I'm hitting them straight. Then it's like, oh, shit to bed again. Started slicing everything. I'm like, well, this did not help at all, but we'll see. But no, I think discipline to me is so important because it gives me structure in my life. Like I'm not disciplined in every aspect. Like I have certain things that I'm very disciplined, like the way I structure my day, my mornings, the way I do certain things, some non-negotiables in my life. When I realized what those were, it allows everything else to be easy. Like to me, health and wellness is like I've realized just over the past 3 to 4 years as I've gotten older, how important it is because I have so many people relying on me.
Certainly.
So I have to be at my best.
Motivation.
That's my motivation, right? It's not about looking a certain way. It's not about, when you're younger, how, being strong or, being big. It's just, I have people relying on me. I've got to operate at my absolute best. So that is a priority to me. It's a non-negotiable, right? That's just one of the disciplines. And I think a lot of people, if you would take a step back and analyze your life, if you're not where you want to be, or you're constantly frustrated, look at your discipline. Like I can guarantee you're probably not as disciplined as you think.
There's no question.
Because I mean, I see it all the time when I've like talked to people in other professions. I've talked to friends. I've talked to just acquaintances in business. That when they're frustrated about certain things, I'll just dig in a little bit. And they don't really have anything. They're like we talked about before. There's no anchor in their life. There's no discipline to anchor them. So they're just kind of all over the place. One week they're doing this. The next week they're doing this. There's no centerpiece of their life that gives them that anchor and that consistency that they can build upon.
Yeah. Jim Rohn used to always say that everything starts with discipline. Motivation has a use, but people tend to throw the motivation at the top of the triangle and discipline underneath. And he would say it's that thinking is worthless. I mean, you have an idiot and you motivate him. What do you have?
Right.
A motivated idiot.
I mean, you're right. Is
that any better than just the unmotivated idiot? Probably not.
Not at all. Not at all. And I look at you. There's 3 things, right? You have to, 1, establish disciplines in your life, right? That's the foundation. Then
learning, knowledge.
Yes. Then you find inspiration, because inspiration is from within. Right? What inspires you? So if you have the discipline, you built these habits, then you find your inspiration. Motivation is external. Inspiration is internal. So all 3 are important.
Man, it's funny how we don't talk about that. Isn't that interesting?
We don't. You're right. But because motivation is fleeting, right? It's external, right?
We think we can go buy it or get it.
Yeah, but
you can purchase it.
Yeah, but you can't. You gotta find out what inspires you. And most people are looking for something to motivate them instead of what is inspiring them. Those are 2 distinctly different things. And most people conflate the 2.
Yes.
And to me, it's like once I realize how different they are.
Yeah.
And because like you can motivate me, I can inspire myself.
Absolutely right.
Like, that's how I look at it. But people, you can conflate the 2. And I don't believe in that's the case. And once I figured it out, it made things a lot easier for me because I'm like, the inspiration came from within.
Like I look back at that scenario and the self-development people who really taught me motivated me to find what turned me on. They helped me find what energized me, what they motivated me to look inward to find out what I am inspired by, what turns me on, what gets me going, what perks my curiosity, because it was all coming from within. But they got me motivated to look inward to be inspired. They weren't inspiring me to do a task or to go out there and project that I'm someone that I'm not. Right.
Yep. Inspiration it's so important, but most people gloss right over it. They go from discipline to motivation. Inspiration is the glue in between, I believe.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to when you read something inspiring or you learn about someone else's journey or actions or how they overcome something. Those are moments that you can associate with, or you maybe desire to have that same kind of experience. That's inspiration to come from within.
Yeah.
That's not a motive. To me, that's never a motivating story. You know what I mean?
No.
We sell it in today's society as a motivating story. it has to, you got that spark has to come within here.
Yeah, because again, like motivation to me is like something that makes you want to do something, right? So I can motivate you to get your ass off the couch and walk. I can also inspire you, because again, I think people can inspire others, but your inspiration truly has to come from within you. I can inspire you to be a better person by walking more or exercising more.
Certainly.
That's a frame of mind change.
Yeah.
The motivation is a tactical thing, right? It's getting you to do a certain thing. I'm going to motivate you to work out today. If I just be a certain way, I can inspire you to be a person that works out. Two different things.
Absolutely.
But the inspiration has to come. It can be perceived from me, but you have to internally feel the inspiration.
Yes. And that, I think, is what's missing.
Yeah, it is.
Oftentimes.
Because the motivation is for things. Like, I'm motivated to do this. I'm going to run today. I'm going to post on social media.
That's why the gyms
today.
are so busy in January.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But in taking it back to business and entrepreneurship, like, I've talked to people that get frustrated about certain things. Like, okay, well, what have you done? Well, I've done this, this, and this. Okay, well, what do you keep doing? Well, I don't know. I wasn't motivated this week. It's like, you're missing the point. Like, you have to do things. You got to find the inspiration, because inspiration and discipline will make you do things when you're not motivated to do them.
So what if a person came to you and said, I don't know what I dig, and I don't know if I've ever been inspired to do anything unique or different in my entire life. You know, I just kind of like, I read a lot, and I see a lot of motivation style stuff and people talking about doing good stuff, but I've never felt anything that's caused me to act.
Okay. When do you feel joy? And your life in general, when do you feel joy?
I would imagine
that'd be the first question I would ask.
Family, friends, spouse.
What about your family? What about, like, when in those instances when you're with your family do you feel joy? You gotta unwind and ask the next questions. Most people are afraid to have those conversations with themselves or with others.
That really strikes me as being really sad.
Yeah.
Like, there was that old Pink Floyd song when living quiet lives of desperation. Most people do that. And it's like, I really hope that's not the case, but I get the feeling sometimes that we just really don't want to look inward at all. Like, we're just so down on ourselves, or our perceived perceptions of ourselves, or how we think others perceive us. It's like and it just stifles. I think it just stifles our ability to take action on what could be maybe a life-changing opportunity.
Oh yeah, I think that's that's definitely a big thing. I think people get very complacent in life, or content, and they're like, I'm good. Like, there's really no upset in my life. Things are moving smoothly. But deep inside, there's something more that's lacking. They're just not going out and looking for it.
Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of people that do that. Because again, it's the fear of change, right? People get complacent, right? So we'll just take an example. If you're complacent in life, that means I'm good, right? There's nothing bad about what's going on in my business. There's nothing, it's just pretty easy right now.
Right.
And they may have an opportunity. It's like, oh, like, this could be a huge opportunity. It's going to upset a bunch of shit, right? It's going to cause some turmoil, but the upside is so much greater. Most people don't look at the upside. They look more at the downside. And they don't want to cause the upset because, and again, that's why people have this negative frame of reference. Why do you
feel that is?
I think a lot of people now are wired negatively. That's a negative programming, right? If you're looking at a situation where, we'll take it like this: the downside is here, the upside is here. Most people perceive the downside in that situation to be here, the upside to be here. Even though it's factually incorrect, the perception of it, because of the way people are wired negatively now, is that downside is so much worse than the potential upside.
So it's more comfortable not to take action.
Correct.
Because we will 100% ensure that we're not disappointed.
We will 100% know the outcome. If you take action, you don't know the outcome, even if the potential upside outweighs the downside by exponentially more. lot of people just don't want to take action. Indecision.
See, I believe that we may have this self-development thing wrong.
Okay.
I know I said this to you multiple times. I know it's a tremendously profitable industry.
Yeah.
But we're talking about oftentimes external motivation by yelling, by showing video clips or whatever. And I don't know if we really ask the questions to get the potential client or the viewer or the listener to look inward, to challenge them to find out where their spark is or to find their spark. And I don't think we do that.
We don't. And that's the
because
problem.
There's no money in that. Maybe
it's very easy to sell somebody something that says, hey, I'm going to be your cheerleader. I'm going to, come to this seminar. We're going to yell. We're going to scream. We're going to walk on coals. I'm going to give you a book. You read this book and you're going to be wildly successful, right? You're paying me to come do things, right? It's easy. It's a tangible outcome.
Sure.
Give me $100. You come away to this hotel by the airport and we put coals out in the parking lot. You walk across and boom, tangible outcome. You feel motivated, right? Looking inward is a long, dark, deep, ugly journey. That there's no real tangible outcome in the near term. So how can I get you to pay me to teach you how to look inwardly and go through that journey when there's nothing tangible you're going to see after you hand over that money to me?
Okay.
For a long period of time.
Got it. And so let me flip that.
Okay.
So what you just described leads me to believe that the psychology industry, psychiatrists and psychologists, they are working in that space. And quite frankly, for that business to continue, the patient needs to continue to go. And go and go and go and go, because therapy is about continuing and talking and vetting. And
sure,
I get it, and I'm not saying that's incorrect, but that's the opposite of the motivation industry, right? If you want to really look internally, where do people go to do that? I think if they're really humble enough to say, I want to learn how to do that, they'll probably go to a medical doctor or a psychiatrist.
Yeah, absolutely right. 100%.
But I'm not entirely sure that is going to get them to the entrepreneurial mindset.
I think it can. I think talking through things can absolutely help with that. But again, that's two different things, right? Talking about getting them to the entrepreneurial mindset by talking to a therapist is probably not going to be the case, right? You either have it or you don't. It's like,
I get it.
I think that. But back to the point about motivation, it's easy to sell motivation. There's a tangible outcome. Like people want instant results. I'm going to sell you this course. You follow my course.
So they're living in a dream world. They're seeing that, and they're projecting them in their mind. They're projecting themselves in that scenario. As fleeting as that feeling is, but that's what's going to happen to me if I buy the $3.99 course.
And guess what? When it doesn't happen, they're wired to blame themselves. So the people selling this shit, not the shit, because
they probably expect it not to work.
But think about it. It's almost like there's not a loss for them. There's no downside. Yeah. You're gonna buy it, and then if you don't do it, I'm like, well, you probably didn't do the whole thing. You probably missed something. And then people are like, yeah, you're right. I didn't complete it. I didn't do this exercise, or I didn't. Human beings are predictable, right? If I sell you a 12-week course and I say, hey, give me $1,000, you buy this 12-week course, you follow it to a T, you will make your money back times 10, or I will give you your money back. I can guarantee to a 99% degree of certainty that most of these people know that person is not going to complete the course.
I get it.
They're going to do 11 weeks or 10 weeks. They're going to skip a week and then, you didn't do what we told you to do, so we don't have to give you the money back. It's a no-lose situation.
No, I see that.
Human behavior is predictable.
No, I see that.
We don't finish.
I see that.
And that's the problem. And people in the motivation industry can bank on it. They can bank on human beings being lazy and not finishing. That's why people quit right before the goal line.
It's the truth. It's just, and how many tremendous ideas just never get acted upon?
I mean, so many. I mean, think about that. Think about how many people die with their best inside. Like, that's my biggest fear in the world. Like, is you know, Matt and I actually talked about this on Friday. We were meeting in offsite, and it's, I think Ed Milet's the one that talked about it in a podcast, and he said he was talking about his biggest fear is getting to heaven and meeting the man he was supposed to be. And like, I remember hearing that in a podcast, like that hit hard. Because it's like, I don't want to leave anything on the table.
No,
I don't want to get there and be like, this is who I designed you to be, but you fell short. Like, think about that. Like, think that's heavy as shit. And like, that has sat with me for years. First time it was like 2 years ago I heard that, and that has sat with me. And that's kind of how I live my life. Like, I don't want to get to the end and meet the man I was supposed to be and realize that I fell short of that.
Yeah. Regret is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
You know, we preach not to be regretful. We preach that it's not productive to be there. But I would have to say the human condition certainly is filled with a certain amount of intrinsic regret. How much we act on that is all up to the individual. Yeah. But regret is a human emotion.
It is. And it's a scary one. I don't want to regret anything. I don't.
And can't regret be used as, I don't know, inspiration? Right?
I think so.
Or inspiration into action?
Again, like that's
or the potential of regret, I should say.
Again, that's that whole podcast. Like, that's when that hit me. It was like, holy shit, like, I need to get my shit together and make sure I become who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but I know it's not who I am today. And I have to keep moving forward and keep pushing myself.
No, I see that.
And that was one of those things where it was one of those moments where, you know, you have those moments in life where you hear something and it smacks you in the face.
For sure.
That was one of those ones that literally just smacked me in the face. And I was like, oh, like that hit.
Do you think people can people be a relatively non-motivated person, I should say, and just change on a dime? Do you think that there's moments within all of us that, if acted upon, can be life-changing in a moment and sets your life on a different course?
It's going to be a catalyst. Yeah, I think so. You have to have it. I don't think people will do it out of their own volition. I think there has to be some sort of catalyst.
Okay.
Like, if someone's just an unmotivated person, they're just kind of meandering through life, right?
Okay.
Very rarely will you see somebody like, oh, I'm going to wake up today and change everything. There's usually a catalyst, bad medical report, you know, a relationship breakdown, a loss of money, you know, something tragic that happens. That, if you look at it historically, that's typically the catalyst that causes such, because that's a you know, a huge behavior shift to change like that. So it's got to be something that the catalyst has to be of such magnitude that it can create such a shift in behavior.
I remember hearing a story years ago that this very successful businesswoman would unwind her story. And it was, you know, she came home to her husband 20 years prior. And, you know, she meekly showed him a pair of shoes that she bought, you know, for a discount store for like $20, and he blew a gasket. And it was such a moment in her life that at that moment, she didn't want to be treated that way anymore, and so disrespectfully. At that moment, she was never going to ask anyone for money again for something she wanted or needed. And it was such a seismic moment in her life that it set it on a new trajectory, which led to business success, a new marriage, a new family, the whole thing. But it was basically that one moment that she felt so disrespected in a vicious way. I think it's the way it was done to her. And it was such a seismic change, but something, you know, and I've always thought about that. Like, you know, we probably all have something in us that, if acted upon, could, if we chose to, send our life in a different trajectory.
I think so. I think we all get to points in our life where those moments come. It's one, do we recognize it? That's the first thing, right? Most people we're walking through life in this haze, so we're not even recognizing these moments that are happening. Because I think to recognize one of those moments that can cause a life-altering change, you have to be in tune with yourself.
Okay.
You have to be very self-aware of who you are, where you're going, what you want, what you don't want in life. Then you start to see the world differently, right? You start to perceive things differently. So I think most people aren't even looking at that, right?
Okay.
So you have to recognize the moment. Then you have to decide, are you willing to take action? Do you understand the consequences of the action you're about to take, and have you accepted it? That's the second piece. I think but very rarely people get past the first one. They don't even recognize it.
Yeah.
Like, I've talked to people in my life that they'll recount a situation, and in my mind, I'm like, that could have been a big fucking deal if you would have just done it. They didn't even see it that way. Like, that could have altered the course of your life, but they weren't even looking at it that way. They were looking at it completely the opposite way. So it's you have to be able to recognize it first. I think that's the biggest challenge people have.
Yeah, so much or so many of our thoughts are really tamped down by internal fear.
Internal fear,
that's probably
society.
Part of the condition.
Yeah, I mean, society tells us what we should and shouldn't do, and I think people listen to people.
But
right?
we let society do that to us.
Well, exactly, and I think that is something I've learned more so as I've gotten older, that I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me what I can and can't do, and just let you kind of let things play out the way they play out. And
it's easier to ask for forgiveness, right? Than permission.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think it's really just being present to what you're doing, being present to everything you're involved in, not overthinking things, not trying to figure out the what if sometimes, and just embracing it and letting things play out. I think a lot of people either don't want to do that, right? Because there's a fear of change. There's a fear of upset.
The laziness plays into part of that too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Comforts.
Yeah, I think we seek comfort as human beings. I think that's a big part of it. But I also think that people just they don't know how to be present. Because to be present to something, it takes effort. It takes work.
Oh, most definitely.
And most people, they'll say, "Oh, no, you're not. You're distracted." Like, I can sit in a meeting with someone and they'll be like, "Oh, I was present." I mean, if your phone was on the table in a meeting, you weren't truly present in the meeting.
Sure.
There was a distraction there. Even though you don't think it's a distraction, it is, because if you were truly present, you wouldn't need to have your phone within eyesight.
Most definitely.
But people don't even think about that stuff. It's those little things that I pick up on that I notice that can really impact someone, right?
Yeah.
Because that can be a distraction. You miss the big thing that's going on. You miss that moment that could change the course of your life. You miss the thing a person said that if you picked up on and would have responded in a certain way, could have got that client, or could have done this or done that. It could have been that life-altering thing, but you were too distracted, even though you don't think you were.
That's funny. So, down at the radio station here the past 3 weeks, I have intentionally gone in the morning early, and I have put my phone on silent on my desk and closed the door and went into the studio and done all my thing. So for the next 6 hours, I don't even see my phone. And today I carried it further. After that, I went into a 2-hour meeting, and while I was sitting in this meeting, wrapping it up, I'm like, "Where's my phone? Oh, my phone's in my office." I never even missed it, but I realized that my learning and my engagement, everything else the past couple of weeks, by not having that phone around me, I'm not sure I could have done it. I'm not sure that I would have had the level of comprehension and the required amount of intellect had I had that phone with me. It was a really interesting lesson for myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a distraction.
No question.
I always, if I'm in a meeting, it's never on the table. It's always in my pocket on silent. So I'm not distracted by it.
Yeah.
And again, like I know there are certain times where people will have it on the table. They're, okay, I'm waiting for a phone call. I'm waiting for my kids to go, which is fine.
Sure.
But I've said this before on podcasts. If someone's in a meeting with me and their phone is on the table, are they really, into the meeting fully? Right. Are they invested in it fully? I don't know.
100%.
But that's, again, I think where people go wrong. They're not present to what's happening in life.
Yeah, and if we're walking around and operating in a state of high alerts, disengagement, or easily a state of easy distraction, it probably hard is to take a calm moment to look inward and to maybe find the peace to examine oneself and opportunities come and go. They're missed.
Yeah. The self-examination is definitely, I think, it
suffers
challenge.
based upon our lifestyles for sure.
Absolutely,
it has to suffer
100%. And I always try and take time to have that self-examination, just to sit with myself, sit with my thoughts. And you have to force yourself to do it, because it's truly, I didn't realize the importance of something like that, of just being able to sit with my thoughts until I've, probably like mid 40s. Like,
wow.
I always meditated and did that shit. But when I mean sit with my thoughts, like really just sit there and think, not meditate, but actually think through things, like everything, professionally, personally, like just really start contemplating things. And it's a difficult exercise, but I think it's truly powerful when you understand how to do it and do it on a consistent basis.
Oh, certainly.
That's kind of how journaling, right? Journaling helps with that. Like when you journal, which I do, but I'm just talking about literally just sitting in my chair and thinking.
I think I'd even venture to say that exercise is separate. For me, I know it's separate from the journaling. I mean, the journaling is a form of expression for me.
Yeah.
To get things out. But I find that every 3 or 4 days when I go on my walks, I shut down. There's no music, there's no podcast, there's nothing in my ears, and I force myself, even on the hottest of days, to be alone with my thoughts. And when I started doing this 2 years ago, on advice of a good friend of mine, I hated it. The fact of walking for 60 minutes at a good pace, a good clip, and having no distraction to get through it. But I ended up valuing it, because I said, wow, this is an hour of my life that I'm really in tune with myself. Different than journaling.
Yeah.
Thinking.
Yeah.
Because journaling, sometimes you're not thinking. You're literally just vomiting on paper.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Right? Sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, in being alone with your thoughts is talking to yourself when you think about it.
No question.
Like, and that's something this one video I saw, I can't remember who the guy was, but he made such a powerful point. And he was talking about like how people talk about themselves negatively. He's like, I talk to myself like, you're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. Why? He's like, if I talk to people like that, I would have no friends in my life. He's like, so why are we so hard on ourselves? Like, why do we talk to ourselves?
Certainly.
We should love ourselves first. Like,
certainly.
And that video was so powerful, because he was talking about like why people have such struggles in life, because they don't love themselves and care for themselves, like the way I'm so hard on myself.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm super strict.
I think a
on
lot of high achievers are hard on themselves.
Yeah, but I had to learn to be more graceful with myself, because I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm thinking, like, if I said that to someone else, I would literally have no one that liked me. But yet I'm sitting there talking to myself that
way.
And that was a struggle. When I heard it, I'm like, oh man, I think this dude's talking to me like I'm an asshole. Like, I'm an asshole to myself.
Yeah, I think most people that do not display severe narcissism, because I think most people aren't severe narcissists.
No,
I
agree.
We all have a level of it in various degrees, but if you're not a pure narcissist, I think everyone else there, we're probably harder and more critical on ourselves than we are anyone else. Right? I mean, whether it's justified sometimes or whether it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very hard on myself. And
do you live in the future too much?
It's a good question. Meaning, break that down a little bit more. Like, just like future-based thinking.
No. Do you spend too much time living in a what if scenario and trying to manage how you would handle this, if almost like you've already determined in your mind there's a strong possibility it's going to turn out this way, and how am I going to handle that when that happens?
It's a good question. So I don't think, do I live in that too much? No. Do I live in that? Yes. I think a lot of what I do, because my brain never turns off. Like, I've realized that.
You have that problem too, huh?
Yeah. Like, I wish I could be just turn it off. So I try and be present, right? When I'm with people and I try to be very present. When I'm by myself, I am thinking future based a lot, like, and analyzing all the what ifs. And I don't think it's to the level where it's a problem, where it causes me this mental upset. I think it can help me because it helps me think through problems before they happen.
Okay.
So I know if it does happen, how to address it.
Sure.
Like that's kind of how I think when I'm thinking future based. It's I'm thinking about scenarios that are potentially in the realm of happening. And okay, if this happens, what would I do? If this happens, what would I do? If this happens, what would I do? And all those what if scenarios. So then I know what is the worst case scenario?
Sure.
And then what happens if this happens? How do I react to it? So I'm preparing myself for that.
Yeah.
I don't think, I do think future based a lot, but I don't think it's a problem for me.
Yeah. I can share at many points in my life. It's been a problem for me, like meaning that through any times of strife that I've had, I can remember I wouldn't what if myself to death. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't create a bunch of scenarios in my head, but I would lock in on one scenario, and then I would almost kind of convince myself that that's what's going to happen, and it's not good. And when that happens, mm-hmm. Eric, how are you going to manage that? And I'd work out the entire process of how I was going to mitigate the pain or whatever.
Sure.
And I would spend more than certainly unnecessary time working out this future scenario. Mm-hmm. In most instances, it never happened.
Yeah,
I know exactly it never happened. So I regret the time I spent doing it. I don't know if I do it as much as I've gotten older, but when I was, go back 5-10 years ago in the height of a different business I was in. Yeah, I and again, it was a little bit of negative thinking.
Yeah.
But it was also arrogance that I could tell myself that I know it's not going to go right. And this is what's going to happen. And when that happens, I'm going to try to figure out how to deal with it this way. Mm-hmm. Ends up being a lot of wasted energy.
It is. I just think I try and always rationalize things to myself. Okay, if this happens, do I know how to handle it? Or do I have the skills to handle it? Right. If I'm good with that, I'm like, okay, I don't worry about it.
Right.
Like I try not to worry. I don't ever feel stressed. I feel overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And I don't really worry about things. I think through, okay, if the worst case scenario happens, do I have the skill set built to navigate through it? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm good. I don't need to worry about it. If I can come to terms with that question with myself, okay, if this shit that I'm working on blows up, this is the worst case scenario. I know how to navigate through it. Then I don't need to worry about it. Because again, that's the worst case scenario, right? It's not guaranteed to happen, but I know if that happens, I am confident enough that I know how to navigate through it, so I don't need to worry about it.
No, I get that.
And that's kind of how I always think and approach problems.
Yeah. It's a better way to live.
Well, I don't know about that. It's how I live, whether it's good or
bad.
It's
better, I think, as opposed to the scenario I just raised, where I get locked in on one particular outcome, which is generally never the good one. Mm-hmm. And then I try to, project my circumstance there and how I'm going to figure that out. And it's just wasted energy. It's just,
I think human beings waste a lot of energy.
Yeah, we do. And I look back at, how much this do we learn as a child, and how much are we maybe not unable at times to break that mold? I mean, I definitely was in a negative situation as a child. Not that I was in any danger, normal family, the whole bit. But I remember in the 70s in Milltown, where there was a lot of bad news all the time. And just the way my family was, an Italian family, Catholic family, was always someone losing their job, someone dying, someone's in a hospital. The positive side of life was never really part of our family structure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And it took me a while. Once I left the family nest and get into my 20s to realize, hey, I can determine the kind of life that I want and the kind of inputs that I put in my brain, but I'm not really sure that all of us are able to make that change at some point. I think folks live with, negativity might have been actually formulated for a lot of people when they were young, and they've not been able to make that turn.
Yeah.
In adulthood, right?
It's programmed. There's that book, What We Say When We Talk to Ourselves. It's an older book. I can't remember who wrote it, but I've read it a bunch of times, and I love it because it makes it very simple. It's like your brain is a computer. It's the hardware. Right. What you say to yourself is the software. So if you talk to yourself negatively, you're programming yourself, your being, to operate from a negative virus. It's true, and the book is it's a great read because it explains it in a very basic and succinct way that it's truly about how you program yourself, and your thoughts are the programming.
No, certainly.
You know, that's the software you're putting in you. And again, like, am I perfect? No, like I still have negative thoughts, right? I still think stupid shit all the time, but I always try and come back to being positive most of the time.
It'll always serve you better in the end.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, because when you think about it, what is there to be upset about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, if I'm healthy and I'm doing what I love to do every day,
certainly,
what's there to be upset about?
Well, when you live your life on your own terms, for the most part,
yeah,
or at least to the degree that you believe you are, and which is all that matters.
Yeah,
really. It's I'll go out on the limb and say it. I think it's a better way to live.
It is. I mean, it really is. I feel very fortunate that I get to do what I get to do every day,
right,
with the people I get to do it with. So
right.
I've gotten lucky, definitely. But again, even if I wasn't in this position, I would still try and look at everything from a positive perspective, because it just makes it easier. You know, we get to choose whether we're happy or not.
Like, it's a choice.
It's a choice. Like, happiness doesn't come from me or from you.
That is not a very popular saying in today's society.
No,
you'll get a lot of blowback.
Yeah. What is something's going on with this thing? Sorry. Technology difficulties.
Technology.
I don't know, man. It's stupid.
We're at the end anyways.
It's social media. But yeah, I think again, like, most people don't realize that, like, happiness is a choice. Like, you can choose to be happy or you can choose to be sad. It's your choice. You know, that's why again, I talk about it all the time. It's why I love stoicism, because it's not about not feeling emotion. It's about only feeling the emotions you can control.
Exactly.
And I determine my happiness, not you. Like, you don't make me happy. I make myself happy.
Yeah.
And if I'm not happy with something, that's my choice.
Yeah, and what I love about stoicism too is it really is a part of it is letting go, because you're letting go of things that you've prior thought that you are somehow can control, which was just crazy, because most humans believe they can't control most of their life, and in turn, we can control only a portion of our lives.
Very little of our life we can control. When you think about it. So when you think about the grand scheme of things, like, very little do we control.
Yeah, but that just means that the parts we actually can, we really need to get it right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I think like that's kind of a big deal. Like, you might want to think about that and get that right. I mean, truly. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in life you can't control. Like, like I said, there's many things you can't control.
All right, partner. It's always a good one.
Man.
I go home and I'm always perplexed. I'll think about this for days.
Listen, man, I live perplexed. It's my life, dude. That's my life. Yes.
All right, friends. We'll see you again
next week.
Next Tuesday, 6:00. Thank you.
That was good, man.
Excellent. I can just shut it off. Great.
God, what's this thing? Stupid TikTok is so dumb. Let's focus.